Coming up after the break, what happens when the number of earthquakes in your area spikes because of fracking, but the insurance companies decide it's too risky for them to cover? The roundup is next. Google's list of dangerous products not allowed to be advertised on their site includes explosives, guns, and knives. Well, now they've added something new: payday lenders. That story kicks off the roundup. Nicole Verkindt is the founder and president of OMX. This whole thing about payday loans is wildly controversial. Facebook got rid of them ages ago. But there is this notion that short-term credit for the underbanked is important. Is it important, or is protecting them from these kind of payday loan sharks important, paramount?
So Google's motto from day one was "Don't be evil." I've always seen payday loans as evil. The first startup that I was involved in was a manufacturing facility offshore in Dominican Republic, and we had about 70 employees down there. And every single Friday, we had a lineup of sharks outside waiting for their paychecks. And I felt that they didn't understand the math, and that they were giving away way more than their paycheck.
Sure.
And then they're digging this hole they can't get out of. So I personally have always seen it as evil. But in this case, the thing about these online platforms, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Google, is they truly are monopolies and monopolistic.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're proactively sort of taking on this social consciousness, which is very interesting, where they're saying, we're going to make these rules about what's ethical and what's not. And in this case, they're making that decision that it isn't.
And at the end of the day, it's Google's spot to do with as it sees fit. You can't sue them and say, you must allow me to do my business on your platform, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The issue, though, and I mean, I can see that lineup of people outside your business, and I can see the sharks just waiting to gobble up their paychecks. But, there are people who say we run a legitimate payday loan company, that they say there's 24 million households in Canada that are, quote, underbanked. Short-term credit is a problem for them. How do you address that, if not through these kind of payday loan programs?
Well, there's lots of different ways to address that. I think what we're talking about here is really about whether or not they should be allowed to advertise. And the way I see this is I see advertising in online platforms is such a huge part of their revenue stream that it's really an extension of their brand almost. I'm sort of surprised that it took Google this long. I mean, as soon as Facebook got out of it, I would have expected that Google would have followed, and yet they seem to have dragged their feet on this. Is that? Well, it feels like they're being defensive. They faced a lot of criticism in the last couple of years in the pharmaceuticals industry and other industries, so it feels like they're being a bit defensive here.
People have even brought in civil rights as part of this argument. I'm just going to read a quick quote from one of these groups. The head of one civil rights group says, "These companies have long used slick advertising and aggressive marketing to trap consumers into outrageously high interest loans, often those least able to afford it." Excuse me, I got marbles in my mouth today. I guess, it comes back to that image outside your company. They know where to find it. They prey on the vulnerable, and they take advantage.
It's a free world. People can make their own decisions, and if there's a flashing light in front of you, maybe you're more inclined to do that. But there's so many other categories where this falls into gambling, and
Sure.
so many other categories.
Okay, next in line, the story about insurers in Oklahoma. That earthquake frequency in Oklahoma is soaring, largely, everybody seems to think, because of fracking, and insurers are seemingly at least backing away. A handful of earthquakes in the area in 2008, so people didn't feel they necessarily needed it. 890 earthquakes this year. I think we have a graph here that can show you the extent of growth that we've seen of earthquakes of a magnitude 3.0 and greater. You see, like back in 2002, there are hardly any at all. 2015, 890, and now the insurers are saying, "Well, wait a second, we're not in the business of insuring that. They're seeing way too big losses." What do you do to try to mitigate against that?
Well, first of all, those numbers are shocking, aren't they?
It's astounding, yeah.
I mean, what do you do to mitigate against them stopping insuring people? That's what you're asking.
I guess, yeah.
Well, I mean, again, it's a free market, so maybe there'll be another insurance product that comes out that's just more expensive. But I asked a friend of mine who's in insurance, she says, yeah, that's how the industry works. When the risk gets too high, we pull out, and that's just...
Or charge more.
Or charge a lot more.
We've seen insurers there, the rates have gone up, I think, 260%. And deductibles, of course, are going up as well. We heard from one woman who said there's 39 earthquakes within 2 miles of her home in a year, $70,000 to $80,000 of damages, and she was declined because her policy didn't cover it. at one
Because
point,
most of these policies, the house has to be completely destroyed pretty much. The thing I got thinking about is this link to the oil and gas sector.
Yeah.
And I was thinking these huge insurance companies must be insuring the oil and gas sector as well. So if they're going to be fighting for the homeowners and going up and trying to go after the oil and gas sector, they're just going to basically be going after themselves. So there's kind of this weird tension that could be happening.
It's tricky, and people get caught in the middle. 60 Minutes did a piece on this, and I think we have a clip of that. Let's take a listen to these two women talking about their experiences.
What Quake app do you use?
I use the one. They say they check their phone apps to track earthquakes around the state all day long.
But look at that.
Cherokee, Enid, Fairview, Medford, Stillwater.
All in one day.
All in one 24-hour period.
It's amazing that you get that many in one area, and then, you add into these people the fact that they've got to deal with insurance on the side.
Yeah, this is sad, and I think it's the same situation in Canada where insurance for earthquakes is going to be a lot more expensive in BC versus Ontario, for instance. So.
Okay, I'm starting
Not
to
this
run
extreme, though.
Starting to run out of time, so I'm going to move this along. Alibaba is joining the Washington-based International Anti-Counterfeiting Coalition. I was talking to a friend of mine today who said it's a little bit like East Germany in the 1980s joining the Anti-Doping Coalition.
Yeah, but Jack Ma is really trying now. He's gone public. He's embracing globalization. He's got Wall Street there to make him accountable, and I think he's investing more in this space.
For sure. They had 2,000 staff just watching for counterfeits. They're adding 300 and say they can add more. I guess you get to a point where you've got a product that big or a distribution chain that big. Is it possible to really guard against counterfeit? It's always going to get through.
Well, I think there's different levels within the platform. So there's a platform called, I looked at eBay versus RealReal.
Okay.
So RealReal is an authenticated luxury goods platform where they bring the products in, they make sure it really is Chanel or whatever, and then they send it out to the consumer. So you kind of have these different waves of levels here. But in this situation, I think Jack Ma really is trying to get rid of the counterfeit products, or maybe try to label them. Or we do that in the OMX platform. We say, this supplier, we rate them, or they're authenticated. And this one, we actually have no idea about.
Yeah, you get the little blue check mark beside them.
Yeah, exactly. But I would rather have the troublemaker at the table than not at the table.
Well, for sure. Though, I mean, Gucci, Yves Saint Laurent, a bunch of them are suing Alibaba. I wonder what they think of, they see them joining the Anti-Counterfeiting Coalition.
But they're also shooting a messenger.
Yeah.
You don't go on a dating site and then sue the dating site because the guy was a dud, right?
Fair enough. All right. And lastly, this Atlantic superstores, Loblaws, no frills across the country today were shut down because apparently there's a glitch in the computer system. They downloaded a file overnight and it shut down basically all of the cash registers in a bunch of stores. They were reopened fairly quickly early on in the morning. But, I mean, does it speak to the fact that a little computer glitch somewhere can shut down an entire chain?
Well, it shouldn't. There should be 3 backups. I mean, in this case, you said the backup was screwed up as well.
Yeah.
So I know we have 3.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have taken.
Do you really 3?
Yeah, 3 at all times, running concurrently.
So if one goes down, you're fine. Have you ever had all 3 of them go out?
No, of course not.
Have you ever had 2 of them?
No.
The other thing that sort of struck me is, do we teach people how to run a cash register, how to run a checkout without the computers anymore?
No, we can't go backwards. Come on, the wave's already going. I mean, the gains from the technology have far outweighed this. I mean, maybe one person decided to walk over to Sobeys and then change their behavior forever.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but in this case, I think it's not that big a deal.
It's interesting though, like the automation, I guess, of that world is with a story like this. It shows me that it's all but complete. That it's we don't do this sort of I'm not going to take in a $20 bill and say, okay, it's $18 and try to figure out the taxes. You just shut the store down and say,
we don't do math anymore.
No,
no math around here.
All right, we're gonna have to leave it there. Nicole, great to see you again. Thanks for coming
Peter.
in. All right.